I also want to address the 2 ongoing lawsuits here in Rockford with the porn in the library and the Meade family of the Rockford institution encouraging children to lie to their parents. So I do want to know that we might never agree 100% on things, but we should all agree that there's spiritual warfare going on here, and our children are a gift from God, and we are here to protect them and guide them. So I'm going to start off with a prayer. Dear God, in the midst of this spiritual warfare, we've come before you with open hearts, seeking your guidance, protection, and wisdom. We acknowledge the battles raging around us, both seen and unseen, and we ask for your strength to navigate through them. Grant us the courage to stand firm in our faith, even when faced with adversity. Open our hearts to your divine love, filling us with compassion and understanding for those we encounter on this journey. May your light shine brightly within us, dispelling the darkness that seeks to engulf our children. Help us to discern truth from falsehood and to always walk in your righteousness. As we engage in this spiritual warfare, may your presence be our shield and our fortress. Lead us on the path of righteousness, guiding our steps with your wisdom. We pray for all the hearts of the involved in this conflict to be open to your truth and love. And may your peace reign in the midst of chaos, and may your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Once I did talk about the institution, I just can't get over pushing children to lie to their parents. The most widely known historical person, both atheist and not, is Jesus. Talked about, written about. And yet everything outside of Jesus is in your curriculum. Everything. Every other belief, every other ideology. You ignore the most important book to humanity. You ignore the Constitution, which was written on biblical principles. You ignore the rights of the parents in this cancel culture. I would rather stand with God and be judged by the world than stand with the world and be judged by God. It is a war against Christ and the Christian faith. Faith is on trial here. And I don't know how many of you guys are parents, but you are not responsible. Think about it. Lying to parents and encouraging from our principals to our superintendent. Thank you.
Up next is Chris Crandall.
Good evening. Each time I've spoken, I've brought to your attention the 45 communist goals that were submitted to Congress on January 10th, 1963. This wake-up call was sounded 61 years ago. I wonder, have you read the 45 goals? Because I gave you copies. It's happening in real time. Tonight I want to talk about a woman named Xi Van Fleet. This is her book entitled Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. She contends that communism is here, that we are in a full-blown communist revolution, and that the schools are the vehicle which has delivered this ideology. Ask yourself, in other regimes throughout history, how did they happen? There was division, censorship, a silencing of dissenting opinions, brainwashing via propaganda, changing of definitions of words, a rewriting of history, all of which we're seeing in America. Eventually, people turn on one another and lives are lost. Mrs. Van Fleet was a young girl when Mao's Cultural Revolution took place in China. Miraculously, she ended up in America decades later and married an American. She has seen little red flags along the way, indoctrination happening. She said that when George Floyd died, it was an eye-opener. Our country literally changed in a day. It was as if gasoline was poured onto the fire. Fires were burning across the country, destroying so much property and killing people. CRT and DEI were ramped up in schools. And isn't it interesting that as a response to George Floyd's death, 23 superintendents here in Kent County signed a pledge to equity on June 5th, 2020. As Mrs. Van Fleet cries out to push CRT as a repeat of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, and soon after the George Floyd incident, the COVID crisis had us divided and people were more than willing to turn in their other people for not following government rules. Can you not see it? CRT and DEI are Marxist in origin. They're part of the ideology used by the communist Marxists to take over without ever firing a shot. As Mrs. Van Fleet says, to stop this, we need to take back the schools. Rockford has a couple lawsuits filed against them for explicit sexual pornography material in books and for trying to keep secrets from parents. Maybe it's time to reflect on how we got to the point where we think these things are okay. I beg you to see that it's part of this communist Marxist infiltration to destroy America. I've sent videos to you to connect the dots. I plead with you to courageously stand against these things for the sake of our posterity and for America to remain a free country. I also want to thank Brenda for what she said. We are a Christian nation, and the ones that are being silenced are the Christians. Jared, you tried to silence me when I provided some of the information to you that you said I could. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Up next is Carly Curtis.
So I don't feel like the board or the administration has dealt properly with the issue of sexually explicit materials in the libraries. And so I feel compelled to keep addressing it. I know you're tired of it, so am I, believe me. And the offensive books now found in many school libraries, including Rockford's, are most definitely pornographic by all legal standards. According to Helen Brinkman, has clearly outlined this in her lawsuit. Pornography is well defined in Michigan law, and it's a felony to provide minors access to it no matter what the courts say. There are laws against exposing children to pornography for a very good reason. It can destroy them for a lifetime. This has been documented by President Lyndon Johnson's Commission on Pornography and Obscenity back in the 60s. They found that sexual indoctrination programs, like we're faced with in schools, targeting children cause irreparable harm, lasting a lifetime, damaging future families, marriages, relationships, and lives, leading to addiction, mental illness, and even suicide. That has not changed, and most normal people intuitively understand this. I know adults whose lives have been destroyed by pornography. Why would you think it's acceptable for vulnerable children to be exposed to it? Are you really willing to assume these risks by defending these books? Schools like Rockford have become the chosen vectors to implement this sexual socialization and normalization. When will you realize that you are being used to usher in a UN-guided Marxist master plan, as Chris mentioned, to destroy the nuclear family in order to fortify state control and tyranny? It is your responsibility to know what the truth is. A morally compromised child is easy prey to be used and abused. Pedophiles are celebrating this, that they are now considered to be minor attracted adults with legitimate impulses. Dr. William Reich, an influential Marxist communist associate of Sigmund Freud, saw the sexual revolution not as an end in itself, but a means to obliterate the family, deconstruct religious values, and to divest parents of their moral authority. All necessary steps to usher in a socialist revolution, which we are now sadly experiencing. This indoctrination and resulting harm is the legacy you will leave by not sanitizing RPS libraries and curriculums to protect students from the woke lies and destructive forces lurking in them. And yes, in spite of your assertion otherwise in your letter to censure Mrs. Crandell, it's obvious that most people here that there is indeed all sorts of indoctrination going on to the detriment of real education.
And on the list next is Dwayne Greer.
I came tonight without much to say. Typically, I always find out something to say during the meeting, but what I did find, I'll share with the superintendent and the president this week in an email. What I would like the board to consider tonight is it appears that Rockford is getting themselves into a little bit of hot water, and I just heard about 2 different lawsuits that are being brought against us because of explicit materials, or parents are being told you don't matter anymore, the teachers have the say, and they're telling children not to tell the parents what's going on in the school. I don't understand all of that. Chris brought up communism that's being taught to many of our kids. This indoctrination that's taking place. And yet board members here are sitting here like it's no big deal. So you guys are going to be possibly found liable at some point in time for what's going on here. I think you all need to be aware of that. Other lawsuits are taking place elsewhere, and they're being advanced. One of the things I will share is a suggestion, nothing to do with what I've just discussed, and I don't want to take away from what they said, but I think the committee structure here is very diminished in that a lot of board members here don't really know what is going on in the other committees. So I've had opportunity to meet with many other school boards and school board members across the KISD, and what I learned is they do not operate by committee. Many of them operate a committee of the whole. And I think you guys ought to consider that concept. I think you know what it is, and I would advise you to maybe take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, and then we're on to the next item, superintendent remarks. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Poles. Reference was made about a lawsuit that was filed against the district. The lawsuit was filed late last year, and the district's position is that we won't discuss this lawsuit publicly for 2 reasons. First and foremost, a student and their family have a federally protected right to privacy, and we will support that right to privacy. And second, I do not believe that litigating a lawsuit in the media or the public is to anyone's advantage. The second lawsuit that was referenced this evening was a suggestion that we have porn in our libraries. I just want to state that we do not have porn in our libraries, and that lawsuit about books in our media centers was dismissed this fall in court. I also would like to reinforce that, as was mentioned this evening by Mr. Waters, that March is Reading Month, and I'd like to thank our elementary media paraprofessionals and the secondary media specialists for all the work that they do to encourage and support reading. I see their efforts every day as I visit our schools, from book talks to book recommendations to listening to students and helping them find just the right book. Staff members go above and beyond to help our students not only develop skill in reading, but desire to be readers. It was also referenced this evening that we do not have conversations about Christianity in our schools, and that is not correct. I was in a middle school classroom this year that was having a conversation about the origins of Christianity as part of the social studies curriculum. And also, finally, would like to reinforce the wonderful work that our Fine Arts Department does here in Rockford. We have 26 of our students this winter earned spots in our all-state honors vocal and instrumental groups. These groups are not easy to become a part of and often require auditions. And the following students have earned the following recognition. Middle School All-State Orchestra, Zoe Clark. Middle School All-State Band, Christian Aberton, Nate Gillane, Jade Gillis. The 6th, 7th, and 8th grade honors choir, Adriana Avilian, Kaya Liggins. The middle school TTB state honors choir, which is the tenor bass honors choir, Sadie Averill, Cecilia Bella, Daniela Scott, Sienna Van Stensel, and Lily Ripma. The middle school tenor bass state honors choir, Quentin Lafferty, Alex Steltzer, Sean Harrison. Middle school All-State Orchestra, Rylan Schulke. All-State Jazz Choir, Owen Scott, Julian Scott, Jonathan LaVidier, Octavian Holland, and Eve Quigley. High school All-State Jazz Band, Jack Stargart. The high school All-State Band, Cade Wolfgang, Isaac Wright, Micah Phillips, and Levi Hernandez. And the All-State Musical Theater Honors Ensemble, Abbey House. And then finally, we have an incredibly rich and diverse community here in Rockford. And the people that represent that diversity come into our doors every single day. Not everyone believes the same things. Not everyone sees the world in the same way. But when students come to our classrooms, what we can do is treat each student with respect and honor who they are and the rich heritage that each one brings. And that's my report this evening.